Let's go.
But look, I put it out over social media that very strongly, look, I'm all the way in Kwame's corner. And that does not mean I think Kwame Brown is perfect, but he is clearly pushing a bigger topic than just his playing career. And I'm so appreciative of that. The message that he's trying to get out, the disruption that he's trying to be to a system that he calls the go along, get along game. And it's a little cabal of elites and blacks who have been anointed by the system or the machine, the media machine, the Hollywood machine, to be, as Kwame says, the gatekeepers of chaos. You know, I say the gatekeepers of dysfunction and degeneracy, and making sure that we as Black people never talk about the real issues related to us. And so, uh, Stephen A. initially, because Kwame did attack Stephen A. Smith, because Stephen A. Smith, back during Kwame's playing days, was one of his most vocal critics. And Kwame went after Stephen A. Smith like he's gone after a lot of people. Stephen A. Smith initially put out over Twitter, he wasn't touching it. That man has a right to his opinion. He's staying out of it. And I celebrated Stephen A. Smith for doing that when he put that out over Twitter and over social media. He since has pivoted and put together an 8 or 9 minute attack on Kwame Brown and a defense of Kwame's critics. And Curtis, I've gone back and forth on my feelings with Stephen A. Smith. You know, I think it was in 2012, maybe. I called out Stephen A. Smith in a column about his use of the N word on ESPN. Stephen A. kept getting in the habit of saying nigga please on ESPN.
Oh, man.
And
I didn't even know that.
yeah, he did it twice, let it go the first time, he did it the second time. I called him out, wrote a column, talking about him and the show he was doing with Skip Bayless at that time. And Stephen A. Smith has never spoken to me since. And we were friendly. I wouldn't call us friends, but we were friendly and supportive of each other because Stephen A. are basically the same age and our careers overlap. We rose around the same time. But in 2012, he quit speaking to me. He's been mad ever since. I've made considerable outreach trying to end the beef. I certainly don't take back what I wrote in the column, but me and Stephen A. got mutual friends. At the top of that list would be Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah is someone I'm very close to and have a lot of respect for, and have tried to be respectful of Stephen A. Smith and a supporter, because Stephen A. Smith from time to time does things that I agree with, and I don't hate on the man for having his success, for having the success he has. 8 million a year, whatever. I'm all for that. But I have to say, I've been crystal clear. If you come at Kwame, I'm coming for your head. And so there will be no more outreach by me towards Stephen A. Smith. And I don't think Kwame's the perfect person to defend himself from the attacks that Stephen A. Smith has put on him. I am. Because Stephen A. Smith tried to talk about Kwame's playing career again here in the past week or two. Well, see, I can talk about Stephen A. Smith's playing career as a journalist. I'm qualified to do that. In that profession, particularly in the sports angle of it, I've reached the very top, and I can recognize buffoonery and bullshit better than anybody else. And that's what Stephen A. Smith has been on, buffoonery and bullshit as a journalist. And so Stephen A. is uninformed. Stephen A. has never been someone who could write. White people, his editors, have always covered for that. He's been basically an affirmative action sports writer who finally found a lane talking shit that he's qualified for. And that's why he moved out of the sports writing deal altogether and just talk shit, because he's never been able to write, and white people have had to carry him in that regard. And that's why he'll always be beholden to them. And that's why he'll always be a gatekeeper of the dysfunction and chaos and go along with the go along, get along game, as Kwame says. He said, and this is typical of Stephen A. Smith, it's marked his entire alleged journalistic career. No one is attacking Kwame Brown personally. That's what Stephen A. Smith said. He went on to say, every single comment has been about your game, nothing personal. Now he's talking about Matt Barnes, Steven Jackson, Charlamagne the God, Jamel Hill. Everybody is covered up. No one has said anything personal. This is typical of Stephen A. Smith. He's fucking uninformed. Always. Always. And I'm going to cite some examples for Kwame to help him out, because this isn't his area of expertise. In 2005, Stephen A. Smith went on ESPN television and criticized Marty Schottenheimer, football coach of the Chargers at that time, I believe, NFL coach at the time, he said he should have kicked on third down, so if they missed it, he could re-kick it on fourth down. Curtis, this motherfucker does not understand NFL rules. We all laughed at this shit at the time. You get one chance to kick a field goal. If you miss, you don't get to fucking re-kick it. It would be the same as saying, if LeBron James gets his sixth foul, they should sit him down and bring him back in so he can get his seventh. You foul out at 6. You miss a field goal, you don't get to re-kick it on fourth down. This is the kind of, he doesn't know what he's talking about other than the NBA. A couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, Stephen A. Smith went on TV talking about a Chargers-Chiefs game and started talking about how he couldn't wait to see the Hunter Henry-Derrick Johnson matchup. Hunter Henry, tight end for the Chargers, Derrick Johnson, middle linebacker for the Chiefs. The only problem, and he talked about what a great season Hunter Henry had, and he couldn't wait to see this matchup on Monday night or whatever the hell it was. Hunter Henry had missed the entire season with an injury. He had not played. Derrick Johnson had been cut by the Kansas City Chiefs before the season. He wasn't on the roster. He's on TV talking about a middle linebacker that doesn't play for the Chiefs and a Chargers tight end who hadn't played all season, and he couldn't wait to see this matchup. The motherfucker has been uninformed his entire career. White liberals have covered for it. That's why he will always be beholden to them. Let me give you another example. Just last year, January 2020, ESPN put Stephen unqualified to talk about MMA and UFC. But because they're paying him $8 million or whatever the hell they paid him, and because he's their pet, because he's their pet, they put him on UFC. Cowboy Cerrone versus Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor breaks an orbital in this dude's eye, face, whatever. This dude goes out cold. Cowboy does. Stephen A. Smith gets on the post-show talk with Joe Rogan and tells everybody, the ESPN audience, that Cowboy quit. You don't say this type shit in a combat sport around combat people. The entire UFC MMA community went off. Joe Rogan did 30 minutes on a podcast with Josh Thompson talking about how out of bounds, how uninformed, how stupid this shit was. Stephen A. Smith ain't been back on UFC since. Dana White, the head of UFC, talked about how ignorant this shit was and how uninformed it was. Stephen A. Smith is paid to talk shit, uninformed shit. He's paid to be a buffoon. Look at this uninformed Negro we got out here that we paying $8 million. That's the best Black journalism has to represent itself is Stephen A. Smith, who knows one topic, the NBA, and that's it. And then when it comes to the NBA, he used to be an information guy of some renown. Allen Iverson, news around LeBron James. He used to be in the mix on that and would occasionally share some good information. But now it's all shit because he's stretched too thin. He's overused. He's trying to do shit. He takes himself too seriously. He's an elite. And he represents the elite. And what Kwame Brown has been trying to say, and this is my big problem, it's not just that he's uninformed, he can't see the big picture. That's what drives me crazy. Kwame Brown has been on a sports level and on a cultural level trying to hint at the big picture. The big picture is y'all's information and the shit y'all talk about is childish and uninformed, and you're afraid of certain people. Let me break that down to you. What Kwame has been saying, and there's plenty of evidence and proof, no, I'm not a bust. I was a 19-year-old kid drafted straight out of high school who went into the most toxic environment in all of sports. Michael Jordan's last 2 years in the NBA with the Washington Wizards. You can ask Jerry Stackhouse, who a year ago talked about how much he regretted being in Washington with Michael Jordan. Jerry Stackhouse played at the University of North Carolina, surely grew up idolizing Michael Jordan, had the balls to put his name on how toxic that environment was and how playing with Jordan diminished his respect for Jordan and he felt hurt his development. Jerry Stackhouse. That was a grown man at that time playing with Jordan. Kwame Brown was a 19-year-old kid. I've seen 4 former Washington Wizards teammates that were there in DC with Kwame and Michael Jordan. Eton Thomas, Jahadi White, Tyrone Nesby, and I can't think of, Chris Whitney. They all did a podcast together, all talking about how toxic the environment was for Kwame Brown. And so what Kwame Brown has been trying to say is, hey man, you sports writers are in the hip pocket of Michael Jordan. You won't tell the truth about my career. I was a 19-year-old kid that walked into the most toxic environment. Jordan didn't even want me there. They wanted Elton Brand. Tell the true story. I'm not a bust. I'm someone who at 19 walked into Jordan's ego at the end of his career when Doug Collins was there to be the head coach, and Doug Collins was partnered with Michael Jordan. He was just basically Michael Jordan's puppet, and I like Doug Collins. I'm not disparaging him, but it was the situation he was placed in. Kwame Brown's career was ruined by Michael Jordan. Stephen A. Smith, none of these groupie athletes from Steven Jackson to Matt Barnes have the balls to criticize Michael Jordan. That's what Kwame is talking about. The journalism is addicted to the elite and the powerful. It will not be the voice for the voiceless. Kwame Brown was voiceless, and none of these cowards would stand up for him. And now, even 20 years later, these cowards are doing the same shit to this young man. And here's the other bigger point. That the man is talking right now. No one said anything personal about him or blah, blah. Charlemagne the God went on TV and started talking about this man's father killing somebody, his brother's killing somebody, and Kwame made snap. Matt Barnes put out a video talking about, you got my dick in your mouth. Steven Jackson called him a dirtball human being, or his life is dirt. What are y'all talking about? This man is sitting here trying to protect his fatherhood, his ability to be a good father to his son, being a laughing stock. And his son is, I think, 16 years old now, a sports fan, likely, maybe an athlete. He's listening to his father be disparaged 20 years later, father minding his own business. Kwame's ability to be a father